Hello and welcome to the News from the Real World video podcast. Today we come to you live from the sound studio in the basement of the Purnell Center. I'm Taylor.
I'm Jake.
I'm Matt.
I'm Lauren.
All right, we're going to pass it over to Jake.
Yeah,
let's talking about tungsten.
Dive right in here. So the first article we're going to talk about is on Live Design Online. It's by Ellen Lambert Greel. It's called Save Tungsten Campaign Launched Internationally. And it's so there's a big debate these days about as all this new technology, specifically for this article in lighting and electrics, with the advent of LED technologies and light sources like that, that the tungsten lamp, the good old faithful tungsten lamp, is a dying breed, a dying technology, and there's a big campaign going on that has just gone international to essentially tell all these manufacturers like GE and Philips, Sylvana, etc., to keep manufacturing tungsten lamps because there's lots of designers on Broadway internationally that use them and prefer the quality of light that they produce over some of the LED lamps that are available. So yeah, that's sort of how actually this article itself does not go into specifics about why this campaign is being launched, but I do happen to know because I was at USITT this year that the big debate is between the quality of light and the quality of design that designers can get from some of these LEDs, which cannot, as of yet, so far as I know, replicate tungsten lamps.
I hate and have long hated LED lights because of their quality aesthetically on stage. And let me explain this.
Yeah, do it.
This is what the article said, is that a lot of lighting designers feel that aesthetically it's a lot closer to fire or candlelight. So it's got a warmth to it that gives you a full color range and really allows you to light everything on stage from costumes to faces to scenery in a much more dynamic way. Right now it also interacts very well with the gel that's in place, so that the instruments, the tungsten instruments, are a lot more dynamic and a lot more warm in their aesthetic.
Well, I think that's a good point too. That the gel and a lot of the that works with tungsten lamp was created to work with a quality of light from a tungsten lamp, and the LEDs don't really yet, and the different colored LEDs that are out there still don't really truly match Roscoe gels that currently exist. So
I tell you what, we should do then. We should just quit with all new technology.
Okay.
And we should just say, forget it. Let's go back to tungsten. Let's be it with tungsten.
No, let's go back to gaslight.
You know what? Exactly. No, why don't we just go ahead and have candles? If they give candlelight
Sure.
impression, why don't we just have actors carry around candles and let light happen that way? I think you have to let technology progress to the point where it replicates, it gives you the dynamic that you want.
It hasn't yet. And
no,
I think it hasn't. There's lighting designers in this article or in other articles that have talked about how LED lights are not at the level of tungsten.
No, but it has been. It has been. No, okay, right. So, 4 Saints and 3 Acts was a show we just did. It was in February here in the RAW, an all-white set. Right, so that probably the absolute worst set to light, right? Because you're going to see all the lighting stuff, you're going to see shadows, imperfections, everything. It sucks. It's a lighting designer's nightmare. There were, I forget, 14 LED fixtures in there, and I couldn't tell the difference between the source force with the gel and the LED with the color temperature, and it was amazing. So I disagree. I think we can get the quality out of these LEDs, and we should just do it because it was great. It looked great.
You think what happened? I don't know when tungsten technology came out, but they said that back then people were like, no, don't use tungsten. Let's continue to use.
I'm sure there's always
so the proponents of this campaign are not anti-LED. They're not saying we shouldn't use it. All they're saying is that there should be a more gradual phasing out, so that all the accoutrement for LED fixtures can catch up, so the gel can catch up and match.
I don't get why. So tungsten's going away completely?
No, and I don't think that's what they're saying either. They're just making sure that the manufacturers do not forget about their tungsten manufacturing. I think that's the issue here, is that with the move to new technology, everyone's kind of jumping on that ship, and there's a fear that the tungsten
and not just the new technology, but the benefits from it. I mean, no one is going to be debating that the energy output from the LEDs is much more efficient than any of the tungstens, and so that's one of the main reasons why a lot of these manufacturers are jumping on that. Is because they can sell that. They can sell you're going to save money by moving to these fixtures.
I hazard a guess that all the people on this petition to save tungsten are old. right? They're people that have been around for a while. That is their aesthetic. That's what they look for in a design. And
I can't
the
say that
younger
for certain one way or
generation
the
may
other,
say, no, we're looking for.
Do we know?
Actually,
do you know these guys?
Well, yeah, I know quite a few of them, and I read an interview by Kevin Adams, a different article on the same topic, and what
I
he
don't
said.
mean old. I mean older.
Older.
I apologize.
But Kevin Adams designed, I guess, Spring Awakening. I think I have that wrong. Don't quote me on that. He's a major Broadway designer, and he said that it's really up to this next generation of lighting designers, lighting technologists to understand how to use LEDs versus tungsten. And he said that in his own work, it's really kind of a process for him to learn when to use one or the other. So he's been integrating that in his own work, I think, very effectively.
So when to use old versus new, and these designers, they're actually trying to get production managers and technical managers on board. They want us to remember that there's still this old thing, there's still this thing that we can do. Much like our next article about sending an email or sending a letter. Old versus new.
What's a letter?
So, exactly. So, Forbes.com had an article by Jessica Kleiman called Why Email Will Never Replace the Handwritten Note. I hated this article with a fiery red hot passion. Every single comment, but there's a student pick, by the way. So all 14, I think, student comments were in agreement with the article that you can't, that email and text messaging and Skype and all these newfangled ways of communication will never replace sending a thank you card or sending a handwritten letter to grandma. And
What bothered you about
well,
it?
here's what bothered me about this is the entire argument in this particular article was based entirely on nostalgia. It was entirely on don't we miss the days when we could open our mailbox and get a letter from so-and-so, or we could say thank you by sending a letter to, and it was based entirely on wishing for bygone days, which are never going to come back. And I think that's a really weak argument that takes away from a greater argument of why handwork and handwritten notes or handwritten anything still have a valid place with all of this technology around us.
So the author of this article, she mentioned that she started feeling this way because she pulled out a box with all these old letters from boyfriends and friends in the past.
True.
And her argument was that you can't do that with an email. Or that you can't pull, but I have pulled up emails.
I've looked in my trash folder and it doesn't empty. I don't know what I'm doing wrong with my settings, but I remember there's emails in there from 5 years ago. It's like, oh, I remember when
The
I was.
difference I think is that I would have remembered either receiving it. I would have a memory of receiving the actual handwritten letter or a memory of writing it, whereas I don't really have that in email.
Yeah.
So the nostalgia part I sort of understand. It's the action. I miss the action of it.
And I'm the first to admit that I myself am not nearly as nostalgic as most people. I mean, when I got married, I threw away the shoebox full of letters and notes from old girlfriends. I didn't feel a need to keep it. I didn't want to keep them, so I didn't. And I do that with a lot of stuff. Just things that I know that I'm not going to need anymore. I get rid of them. I pare it down as much as I can, and that's me. That's how I live my life, or part of my life, anyways. So I don't really buy into a lot of that nostalgia thinking in the first place.
But what this article really goes on to talk about is, if you have a job interview and the job interview's over, do you send an email thank you, or do you send a letter thank you?
I think it's always both or handwritten only. I think it's crucial that you do a handwritten note. I think the email is just too unpersonal to communicate.
I don't know. I go back and forth. I mean, I sort of feel like if you're not going to hire me because I don't send you a note, then I want to fucking work for you anyways. Like, hire me on my skills and hire me on my resume and my interview process. Don't fucking hire me. Don't. I mean, she points out that there's a publisher that will not, underlined, will not hire someone unless they've sent a handwritten note along. And that's just a pure hubris. I mean, that is entirely playing to the ego of the person hiring.
You do agree that you should send a thank you.
It can't hurt. Sure, if playing to that person, if playing to the person who's hiring you's ego helps you get the job, then fine.
I don't think
but if you're not going to hire, if you're not going to hire me because I specifically don't do this one thing that has nothing to do with the job
doesn't that say a lot about the person?
Yeah.
I mean, it says a lot about the person if they're not willing to send an email or a handwritten letter after an interview process. That
I mean,
don't
that's
know.
also
I mean,
that's frankly part of the game. Like, you know, resume and all that stuff is great, but that's the extra step that you need to
yes,
take. You know, even if you are
certainly
sucking up or whatever.
can be. I don't know if I've ever gotten a job because I've sent a note, or not gotten a job because I haven't sent a
but
note.
it puts you ahead of someone that maybe will not send that letter.
I just don't know. I want to see. I want to see numbers. I want to see that there is proof that sending a note does do this, and I don't know that I've seen a lot of that. I don't even know if that can be produced necessarily. I don't particularly buy into sending these notes and every couple of weeks sending them a "Hey, I'm still here without a job. How would you hire me?" thing. I am bugged by that. When I was hiring people, I hated that because but I'm gonna make the decision based on your skills and what you can do, not how much you remind me you're still out there. But not everyone does that, and I understand that in larger corporations that is potentially what can get people lost. But
So speaking of trying to find work or work failing, let's talk about
failing.
Spain theater. This article comes to us from The Telegraph, which I think is Madrid's newspaper. Is that right? Am I wrong about that? Anyway, it's called The Telegraph, and it's written by Fiona Govan, and it's about how Spain theater is really dying. I mean, that sums up this whole thing. Is that Spain theater's dying, and they go through all these different theater companies and all these shows that are just done. They're just
close their doors.
The National Opera Theater Company or National Opera Company had to cancel their show, their Mozart show, Magic Flute, because they just couldn't afford it. And that to me is like, well, if you can't afford even the smallest, most broke down show.
They can't afford it because the government has raised the sales tax on all cultural events.
And they call it the VAT?
The VAT used to be 8% in Spain. They raised it to 21%. That's almost 3 times. That is 3 times as much. And this is in an effort to save the Spanish economy. The theory is that they will make more money on ticket sales for cultural events, and ultimately what that's doing is killing the industry, and they're actually losing more money from the loss of ticket sales than they would have if they had kept the same and the ticket sales had stayed at their current level.
Right.
I think this is an issue of government not getting behind the arts.
Yeah, absolutely.
When arts are failing, it's often because they have no support via the government or independently wealthy people. But maybe in Spain they're going through such a hard economic time that the independently wealthy people can't afford to do this. So therefore, the government should step up to take care of that. But I don't know. To me, it seems like the more the government puts into art, the better the economy is. Because they spend money outside of, there's been studies where they spend money at a restaurant when they're going to see a show and also buy clothes and go to shops. And so it just seems to me that Spain should get behind the arts to get the economy up and running. But
it seems like a stupid solution, right? So it's a huge problem, right? So it's like Spain, Ireland, Italy, like all like
Greece.
Greece. Yeah. So it's these countries in the Eurozone who are coming up with these austerity measures to try to fix things. And do you go after the thing that caused the problem, or do you go after something? And that's so like this reminded me of the whole Mitt Romney gonna fire Big Bird thing, like trying to fix the national budget by going after like 1% of the budget by cutting the NEA, and so like why go after the theaters? Like is it so maybe it looks like the independently wealthy can't help Spain out, but it doesn't. You don't want to go after the other people. That's crazy.
The whole raising it almost 3 times or at 3 times its current rate seems to me a very knee-jerk and a very uneducated decision.
Exactly. It's a quick fix.
Do your homework. Find out where the money actually comes from and go there. Don't go.
I mean, no one looks at the arts and sees it as something that makes so much money. I mean, we do support the economy and we do help that way, but it's not the place to get extra money necessarily.
Right, but even the support, the local support of the economy doesn't necessarily make its way back to the government. It makes it. I mean, it does in a very trickle up way, but not in any way that you can really seriously track. And that's been the Achilles heel of a lot of these local economy studies, is they can't really accurately track how much goes back into the government funding, percentage-wise. They know that, it does. People go to dinner, people pass by a store and say, oh, yeah, that thing, I can come back and buy that thing tomorrow when I need that thing.
You know what, the thing with this is, I feel like Burger King figured this out years ago. They have days per year where they give free fries, right? There's free fries. I can go to Burger King today and get a free large fry. But when I go to Burger King to get the free large fry, I don't just go up to the window and say, can I get the free large fries and then leave? No, I get a Coke and whatever else, right?
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense here. That the government should give arts to the people so that the people, fund the economy, just like buying the Coke and the other things from Burger King.
And some people are going to walk in and just get their free fries and walk back out.
Sure.
But the vast majority, you're right. It's spending money to...
So when you tax the people against doing the thing,
right.
to try to gain money, it just doesn't work. It doesn't
You're
work.
stopping Free Friday. And
Free Friday is awesome. Ah, I miss Burger King fries. All right, that is all. That is all we have for today's webisode. Today's webisode was called Insurrection, and I'm going to let Matt take us out.
Yeah, so the articles we've talked about are on the website listed below. We're on Twitter, so if you like what you see, get us a comment. Use the hashtag NFTRW. There'll be 2 more webisodes this week, so if you like what you see, take a look and tell your friends. If you don't like what you see, tell your enemies.
Good.
All right. Thanks.
Oh.
I'd point out that I did not point to wherever I thought the address would be. It was a large amount of...
I'm going to do it now.
Well, it doesn't matter anymore. We already faded black, dude.